Beyond the Bell, Bloomberg's comprehensive cross-platform coverage of the U.S. market close starts right now.
And right now, we are 2 minutes away from the end of the trading day. Romaine Bostick here, Hyde, Taylor Riggs, counting you down to the closing bell, and it'll help take us beyond the bell. Carol Massar and Tim Stenovec bringing together our Bloomberg Television, Radio, and YouTube audiences. 24 hours ago, guys, we were talking about record highs. Today, we're talking about one of the worst sell-offs that we've seen now in several weeks.
Here's some perspective, though. The S&P is up almost 100% since that March 2020 low. The Dow is up 85%. The Nasdaq's up 112% since that low, and the Russell's up 125%. We have come a long way back based on expectations of an economic recovery. The question is, Tim, what's next?
Yeah, and look, and even perspective in the short term here. The S&P 500 is still looking like over the last 5 days, it's going to be positive. I mean, it's up half a percentage point in the last 5 days. So even though, yes, this is the biggest sell-off that we've seen in quite a while, we're coming from a very high place. And my big question is, what changed overnight between yesterday's record close and what we saw in the early hours of trading today, Caroline? It has to be, what Japan said about spectators or lack thereof at the Olympics.
Well, I mean, you're right. We laugh, but you're right in terms of the Delta variant.
Yeah,
it's basically this fear that keeps them, whether it's peak growth, whether it's COVID continuing to eat into some of our desire to get into the market. There's commitment to this selling. Taylor, 12% higher in terms of volumes. People are putting their money where their mouth is when they are looking at selling.
I think we had some really interesting comments from Barbara Reinhart here, at least on Bloomberg Television, where she was saying the 10-year yield certainly giving us a scarier story than a small pullback in the equity markets. If you take a look at credit spreads, the market isn't going anywhere. Those spreads are the healthiest they've ever been.
All right, well, let's put this into perspective here. We opened lower by about 37 points today. Of course, this was the worst open that we've seen going back to May 11th. Looks like we're going to finish the day down on the S&P by roughly about 36, 37 points here. That's down 0.8% here on the day. Dow Jones Industrial Average down 263 points, also about 0.8%. Similar story for the NASDAQ Composite, down 105 points, down about 0.7%. As for the Russell 2000, that is, I guess, your relative underperformer here on the day, down about 0.9% right now, Carol, at 22.31.
But like I said, up 125% since March 18th of 2020, so it's had quite a bounce back. But the interesting part is watching that bond market. Gina Martin-Adams of Bloomberg Intelligence saying that it shows a complete lack of confidence in the durability of the economy, and we're all not buying into maybe the economic recovery, or at least the strength of it, over the next 6 to 12 months, Tim.
Yeah, go ahead, Taylor.
Carol, not buying into it at all either, are the sector levels of this equity market. For our radio audience, I'm taking a look at the gainers and the losers, pretty much red across the screen. There are only two sectors that are in the green today. It's auto and retailers that are only up about 0.1% to 0.6%. I hate to say it looks like a pretty broad-based sell-off when all the sectors are red. Some of the worst performers, dividend, financials, banks, of course, insurance companies, transportation index off 2 to 3%, of course, because it really was that bond story today, Carol. When bonds come down, the banks certainly get hit the hardest.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a really good point. Let's get to some of the gainers. It was a little tough to find, but I did find some. First of all, got to talk about Virgin Galactic. Man, just taking off, up another 17%. This stock has gained more than 113% so far this year. Don't forget, we're going to be covering it here at Bloomberg, on radio, on TV. We're going to be watching Richard Branson take off on Saturday. I think it's 8:30 a.m. We'll be covering that and watching him go off into space. And that's a lot of the reason why you've seen Virgin Galactic in particular taking off.
Is this going to be on radio too?
Oh, yeah.
Is this going to be on radio?
Oh, yeah. We're going cross-platform right now.
It's going to be wonderful.
See the sound effects? This is what we do.
Is he coming back from space?
That's the plan.
Well, we hope so.
Is he even going into space? Isn't it just skirting the edge of space?
Man.
I'm not going to down
What is he doing in space?
I'm the daughter of a rocket scientist. He's going into space.
There's going to be 21 cameras on board.
21 cameras?
It's going to be pretty cool.
All right,
Tim, are you hosting this?
I am. How'd you know?
Oh, I heard. Little birdie told me.
Actually, Tim's actually going into space.
I wish.
No, okay. All right, so Virgin Galactic
Tim,
up
you're going to
about...
be here on Earth. That's the deal.
That's the deal.
I'll be right
Okay,
here.
all right. Just checking.
Up to 17%.
Get back on track, guys.
Right, I'm trying trying. Virgin Galactic up 17%. Want to talk about Ball Corporation and Crown Holdings. We're among the outperformers within the, package sector today. Citi seeing earnings beats for the sector in the second quarter reporting. So Ball was up almost 13%. Crown was up about 1%. One last name I want to mention, Biogen, updating the label for its new Alzheimer's drug, limiting its use to patients with mild cognitive impairment. And what's interesting is there was a lot of confusion about, for doctors in the medical community, who would use it. So this is giving some clarification, and that's helping it
Let's
move
see
forward.
Tim's decliners, because he's got to get to space.
I know.
got interrupted so
I know
much.
it was a tough day for Carol to find gainers. It was a pretty easy day to find decliners. Let's start with DD Global, guys. Another down day for DD, finishing the day down more than 5%. Was down earlier by more than 7%. Remember, it IPO'd a week ago at $14 a share. Still down after China blocked the company from app stores and that increasing crackdown from the country. Charles Schwab finishing the day lower by more than 3%. Goldman downgraded it to neutral from buy. Get this, guys. The reason, a decline in meme stock trading.
It ain't so.
I know. This will be a really interesting one to watch. I'm going to get to Newegg in just a second. Don't worry, Romaine. Okay. It'll be a really interesting one to watch, especially with the impending IPO from Robinhood. So if they start to see a decline in meme stock trading as well. Stellantis finishing the day down more than 3%. This is the maker of Jeep and Peugeot. It's the company that was formed from the merger of Fiat Chrysler and PSA Group. Today they announced that they were going to plan to spend $36 billion on electrification and software strategy. Shares of Tesla also moved lower as a result. And then here it is, Newegg finishing the day down more than 32%, breaking a 3-day winning streak. Still, though, was up 190% yesterday. 190% yesterday.
Tim, are you going to wear a tie for this special on Sunday? I feel like it's a special occasion.
Thinking about it. Can I borrow one from you?
Nice. You can.
Have you got a space-themed tie for him, Romaine?
Maybe I can find one.
Meanwhile, I mean, so we're not going to the moon in terms of some of our meme stocks anymore, but we are seeing, once again, a search for safety here in the FX market. I go cross-asset for our radio audience. I'm looking at a Swiss franc up more than a percentage point, Japanese yen up more than 0.8%. This is your bid for safety. What comes down in the FX market? Well, actually, the dollar was a little bit weaker today, but the Kiwi, the Aussie dollar, this is commodity-related currencies. The New Zealand dollar off by more than a percentage point. That, as we see commodities come down in the likes of copper, we've seen actually gold break its winning streak. We are still seeing money moving into the likes of Brent crude up 1.2%, bouncing off of that selling pressure we've seen of late. WTI crude up 1.3%. Still no clarity, Taylor, as to what OPEC Plus is going to be up to. But what it is clarity in is this search for safety in yields. We're seeing money pour in to bonds worldwide, particularly in Europe.
You have seen it in the U.S. as well. We are still down about 9 straight sessions here on the 10-year to a 129, so we're below 130, and 192, so nowhere even close to the 2% on the 30-year. And Carol, this really folds nicely to conversations we've had with Jay Barry, for example, of JP Morgan, saying some of this was fundamental, but a lot of this was positioning. He did a Treasury client survey, really short positions relative to the long-term history, and as short as ever since the last time the Fed had tried to raise rates. So it's some of a fundamental story. It's really a big technical story as well.
We're hearing that too when we talk to our market guests. They're saying, if I'm playing in fixed income, I'm doing it really short duration. One thing we know about central bankers, they're quick to ease when there are moments of crisis. But when it comes to pulling off the stimulative measures, they take their time. There's no, desire to shock the markets, guys.
Yeah, and I mean, look, we heard a little bit earlier this morning here, U.S. time, from Christine Lagarde over at the ECB. Not a complete surprise here. I mean, we knew that the ECB was reconsidering how it sort of measures inflation, the idea that it normally had a target that effectively undershot that 2% range, now basically implying that it's going to sort of overshoot here. I think we have a little bit of a quote here from Madame Lagarde. Let's take a listen.
This may well imply, for a temporary period, inflation that is moderately above target. Are we doing average inflation targeting like the Fed? The answer is no, very squarely.
Yeah, Christine Lagarde there, of course, ECB president. Of course, we know monetary policy has been the star of the show when it comes to markets and sort of what keeps these markets afloat. But I think this move also brings back into focus fiscal policy, specifically for a lot of those European nations, guys.
Yeah, really good point, Romaine. And look, I think the important thing to keep in mind is that this is uncharted territory for much of the globe. We're all going through this together. And look, countries are at different places when it comes to the economic recovery. But for the most part, you have central banks trying to figure out throughout the world, okay, what is the best policy response here from a fiscal perspective? when you have the legislators, and from a monetary perspective, Caroline, as well.
And we're also at different places worldwide, globally, when it comes to, of course, concerns around COVID. And you started off the discussion about what's happening with the Olympics, the fact that people can't be there in person to be able to cheer on. But this is Japan noting that it's backing into a crisis. Things still looking ugly in parts of Europe. This is, in the US, we almost feel sheltered from it, but parts of the United States and the South really not looking good in terms of how many people getting vaccinated.
Why can't they have people there? I mean, we had a full stadium for this England game that you were obsessing over yesterday. Did they win?
Yes, they won.
And they're playing on Sunday,
might have an extra
which I think
bank
overlaps
holiday.
with somebody going into space. Have they sort of sorted this out? Are we going to have a England, Italy? Who they're playing
Yeah, is Boris going to
who's
give a
doing
call to Richard Branson? Because Richard Branson, being an England supporter, I would have thought maybe you can view it from
British,
space.
right?
And I do believe he's just going
He's
to
got
the
an
edge
accent.
of space.
Just the edge.
That's what we're wondering. All right, we're going to wrap, guys. That does it for our cross-platform coverage.
I'll see you guys in space.
Bloomberg Radio, Bloomberg TV, and YouTube. We'll see you again, same time, same place tomorrow.